Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us again on Smarter Building. Today we are joined by Claire Orchard from Milton Keynes NHS Trust. Hi Claire, and thank you for joining us.
Hello, you're welcome.
So I think I'll probably just dive right into the questioning, if that's okay. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into sort of the digital world and within the NHS Trust?
So my background is in IT engineering. So when I left college, I went straight into a trainee IT engineer's role within an NHS Trust. So I started my career within the NHS many years ago, and I've kind of dipped in and out of the NHS throughout my whole career, and I find myself back in it again right now. So I've been at Milton Keynes University Hospital for 3 years, and I've got to say it's been, 3 of the most exciting years of my career so far, because Milton Keynes University Hospital really does like technology and appreciates the value of technology as well. So my role at the moment is Head of Digital Innovation, and I also work with the team at the Trust who are responsible for planning and developing our new hospital programme here as well. So naturally, my role is kind of focused on all the technology through that new hospital programme, but also thinking about what we do right now with technology and how we can use it differently into the future as well. So a lot of what I do is quite heavily building focused and smart building focused at the moment, hence our relationship with Symetri.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Very detailed introduction. I guess from a technology point of view and a building point of view, we hear a lot about, on this podcast, about construction processes. Is the NHS focus all about patient care, or is it more about the construction? What drives the technology adoption within the NHS? Within Milton Keynes.
Well, within MKUH, of course, everything we do, focuses on patient care and making sure patient care is the best it can be. And, the experience for patients is absolutely superb as well. But of course, we think about our staff in the development of technology as well. They are going to be the users of a lot of this technology. We've got to make sure that fits with their use cases that they may have. And, a lot of staff at MKUH are clinical, but of course we have lots of support staff as well. So that is equally important. So if we're thinking about our estates teams and IT teams and how they monitor and maintain buildings and all the equipment within the trust, that's a key focus for us too. But it ultimately, contributes towards patient care and excellent patient care at that as well. So it all comes back to patients.
Cool, thank you. And in terms of the technology you guys have adopted so far, can you talk us through that journey a little bit? I think, certainly we've known each other for a few years now, and I think the strides you've taken are quite progressive, especially from an NHS side of things. So it'd be good just to tell the story a little bit about why you started adopting more technology, what drove that, and where you've got to really along the way. Probably a lot of questions.
So I just need to clarify, we're talking about the construction and the building side technology, or more widely?
The construction and the building side to start with, yeah.
I was going to say, because at Milton Keynes we've been using technology for many years for lots of different things. But so our Estates and Facilities Department, they do an amazing job, and they have lots and lots of tools at their disposal to help them do their job, and some of those tools are technical and digital tools. I think for MKUH, a big focus of ours over the next few years is going to be increasing the digital maturity across our estates and facilities services. A lot of the technology we've put into the trust over the last decade has been through our patient record system, but now we need to look at more, the tools that we're using to manage our building, and that, how they're equally important, because they do link into that patient record system, ultimately giving you more context around what is happening to that patient and where, and obviously joining the right people together as well. So from a communications point of view, it's essential that we increase the maturity for our estates and facilities teams, so that they're able to communicate in an effective way. They need to be in the right place at the right time. And at the moment, I think a lot of our tools are, quite manually focused, and don't collect as much data about the building and where people are. So that's naturally kind of made us question and investigate, what could we do to make this part of our organisation more digital. And that kind of, I think the discussions we had at the beginning, Richard, with Symetri were around construction. And collecting, if in an ideal world, if we were to build a new hospital and we had all the information about that building at our fingertips from day one, how would that help us, be more digitally mature and improve our services? Well, having the data and the up-to-date view of the building is one thing, but it's maintaining that view into the future and also applying the right logic to that data. What do we need that data for? Does it all need to be kept up to date? You could argue, yes, it does, but actually, which part of that building and construction data world do we want to jump onto first and integrate into our services here to make sure that we're, delivering value to our staff and our patients, and not just sort of collecting data for data's sake or putting technology in for technology's sake. It really does need to be aligned to the workflows that our staff are working within here, and obviously how that affects our patients.
Okay. And the technology you have put in place so far, what are the solutions that you've implemented?
So coming at this from a construction point of view, we've obviously looked at our construction processes here at the Trust and what data that they collect, and then obviously started thinking about where we put that data. So we have implemented our own common data environment, and we're starting to collect some structured data within that environment there so that we can then collect that, understand that, verify that's, the data that we would need to apply to other technology platforms out there. It could be computer-aided facilities management platforms or BMS platforms as well, and start to build from the construction side out into the operational side. So far, we've made some great strides in developing our BIM strategy. So that we know exactly, what sort of data do we want to collect. We have an environment to put that within. And now we're on the part of our journey where we need to find the right suppliers and the right products and the right people to work with to build a platform that can get the most out of that data and give us the best view of what's happening within our buildings from a real-time point of view as well.
Okay. I think you've kind of avoided using the word digital twin too much, but it does sound as if you're headed along that journey, as well, certainly as some people would know it. Is there an intention to create a digital twin, or are you avoiding using that word for...
No, I'm not avoiding it at all. So I'm conscious that our conversation is kind of started on the construction side of smart buildings. So when we first started on our journey to investigate into what a smart hospital may look like, what a smart building is, we started at the construction side, but at the same time we started another project that focused on the clinical side. So from a clinical point of view, what does a smart building look like? I think the construction industry is trying to define that and has wrapped around the term digital twin in regards to the 3D modelling of buildings to give an accurate representation of what the building looks like. And I think that's important, but that doesn't really talk to the clinical side. It doesn't really say, okay, this lovely 3D version of a building and with all the information about what assets are within it and how well they're working. That's great from a facilities management point of view, but how does that then end up as a clinical benefit for patients, and how does that help our staff perform better in the environment and help our patients in an optimal way, or care for our patients in an optimal way? So we have developed a digital twin here, and we've been using IoT technology to capture information such as occupancy within buildings, environmental features that are being picked up within buildings as well. And we've overlaid that on top of an RFID solution so that tracks where different assets, medical equipment and people are within a building. And we've done that with a company called Heltian, using their platform, which is called, or their application called Empathic Building. So that's given us a lovely, what we call a digital twin of our clinical environment. And it's allowing us to understand how we work within that environment. We have this set up in our cancer centre, which has an oncology ward. that features lots of single patient rooms, and we know that's going to be a design in buildings of new hospitals going forward. We're not going to have big open plan wards with, maybe 4 to 6 beds in a room. You're going to have your own room, your own bed, because we know that's going to be more comfortable for patients. But from a clinical staffing point of view, that's quite, I don't want to use the term worrying, but it's a completely new way of working. You're going to go from being able to see a patient all the time to maybe not seeing a patient so much because they're behind a closed door. So our digital twin is looking at that and thinking, right, how can we provide the information about the building that allows staff to be able to interact with patients in a safer way and in a way that reduces anxiety, but also doesn't cut our staff off from patients as well, because we don't want people to feel isolated within those single rooms. And the sensors that we've put into that building, and the view that we have, the understanding of what's happening from like a bird's eye view, it's been amazing to see how helpful that's been for staff within that ward, because instantly they're not walking around looking for one another. They can see on a map very quickly where their colleague may be. They can see on the map very quickly that the medical equipment they're looking for is in a certain room. So rather than have to disturb a patient or patients by going around looking for things, they can find it very, very quickly. So that kind of serves at the beginning of the clinical benefits of digital twins. And what we want to do is now build that back towards the construction data that we would capture in the very beginning when we build a building, and say, right, okay, we know within a digital twin this is really, really important for clinical staff and patients. How can we optimize this, and how can we start automating things in a safe way? And I think that will lead us back to the understanding that we absolutely need to have an up-to-date, as-built representation of the building all the time. If any of that data becomes outdated, you're not going to make those, you're not going to be able to apply the AI, the machine learning, the automation sort of technology around the building to automate certain tasks. So, for instance, if you have an environment where you change maybe the one room into two, and the digital twin only reflects that as being one room, and you want to make sure that a patient doesn't enter or leave a certain environment because that might be a safeguarding concern, or you may want to make sure a certain piece of medical equipment doesn't leave a room. If you don't have the right information about the room, you're going to make the wrong decision if something does move. So yes, we do have a digital twin. I think some people would argue it isn't a true digital twin, but it's the beginning of a digital twin, and we're kind of discovering what's important to us so that we can add to that in a way that maximizes the benefits to patients and staff as we're building it, not making assumptions and then realizing that the digital twin isn't performing how we would like it to perform.
Yeah, well, I think I've said multiple times on multiple podcasts and webinars and stuff that I don't actually believe there is a one-size-fits-all digital twin, and I don't think there ever will be. So it's, everybody will always say that it's not a true digital twin, but I don't think there is a true digital twin. So I think it's fantastic that you've defined a digital twin, and I think it should be what's important to you based on the outcomes you're trying to achieve. There's no point having a 100% technically correct, whatever that is, technically correct digital twin that doesn't give you the outputs you want. So I think it's fantastic, the stuff you're doing, and I think everybody is at that experimental and feeling stage. In terms of the technology adoption, you're saying you're working back towards construction. Do you hold contractors to account around what they say in terms of energy efficiency of buildings and how the building should operate post handover? Because I know that's a big part of the bidding process, how sustainable, how energy efficient the building would be. From what I've seen historically, nobody's been able to do that really, because you can't get the data, so you just assume it's performing as it should be. But is that something you're interested in?
So absolutely, this all starts way before you have that discussion with them. This comes back to what we've done here at Milton Keynes, in that we've defined our BIM strategy. We've understood what the future may hold, and we don't know exactly what a digital twin may look like or what we may want to use this data for in the future, but we know what's important to us right now, and we know that from other examples of technology adoption into the NHS, there's a need to make sure that you have ownership of your data so that you can apply it to the products and services that you want to apply it to. So Milton Keynes will be, yes, absolutely asking anyone that we work with to sign up to our vision and our ambition for, our own BIM process here, and making sure that they are held to account. There's always going to be challenges. So, we'll have our AIR and our EIR that will define how we would like our construction program to be run. And there may well be challenges back to that. Okay, you said this, but would we be able to do this instead? Well, let's sit down and have that discussion. It may be that we can come to an agreement that still gets us where we want to get to on our journey. But what we can't do is just think about this as a nice to have feature within a construction program, and for it to suddenly be the first thing that gets costed out if things get expensive. To us, it's really, really important, and I think we've made that very clear to everyone we've worked with. And so far, we've had some, we've worked with some great contractors, great partners, and we've had some great results.
On the flip side of that, is there anything you've tried that hasn't quite worked out, is there? Can you give us any lessons learned from this kind of process? Because, as I say, I think for everybody it's a learning curve at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So I think get in there early and define your requirements very early on. It's almost impossible to approach a building project that's halfway through and ask for this data to be collected. I think there's always an opportunity to collect data if you ask those questions at any point of a construction program, but you're not going to get the result you want unless you start right at the very beginning with a clear idea of what you're collecting and why. So, for us, when we started on our journey, we looked at our cancer centre, which was an already completed, building. It was in use. We looked at the data that we'd collected through that construction program. We weren't very involved in the BIM process at all, and that showed us that we didn't get as much as we would have liked to out of the data. But obviously we didn't know the question. We weren't asking the right questions at the time. That wasn't something that we were looking into. We have a building that is at stage 5 at the moment, our radiotherapy building here, that is being constructed on site right now. And that has our strategy, our strategic objectives that we want through the BIM process applied to that construction program. So we're already getting the drops of data at each stage into our common data environment, and we're checking that, and we're already seeing we've got a great wealth of information that we didn't have in past projects. So I think it's always valuable to go back to old projects and be really critical of them and say, what could we have done better? When our radiotherapy building completes, we will go back and we will say, right, did our strategy work? What do we need to amend going forward? And the next program that we have on site will be different. It absolutely will be different. Not because we necessarily got lots of things wrong, although we will do, I'm sure, because technology changes as well. There's going to be different things that you can apply this data to in the future.
So that's the sort of retrospective. Is there anybody who you look at and take inspiration from, either within the healthcare sector or, as I know you guys are quite forefront on this side of things, in further afield in other sectors? So
the university sort of world, I think, are front runners for this sort of technology. But if we're thinking about the data is one thing, and collecting great data and managing your building with it is one thing, but the advent of IoT technology and the sensors that are now available and how cheap and easy they are to source, I wouldn't say that there's one industry or one organisation that we look to for inspiration. I think there's inspiration coming out of absolutely everywhere. The technology that we have available at the moment, coupled with cloud computing now, and it's so easy to access and then store lots of data, it just opens your eyes to a huge list of possibilities that you can apply this technology to. So for us, we're constantly horizon scanning. We're constantly open to new ideas and testing those new ideas as well. I don't think there's, getting back to your question, I don't think there's just one example of someone doing it well, because like you were saying earlier, it's what's important to our trust, and that's going to differ from one NHS trust to another NHS trust, from one industry to another industry. So yeah, I can't really answer that one, I guess.
Okay, well, everywhere, I guess, is the answer.
Everywhere, there's inspiration everywhere.
In terms of the trust, there'll probably be people from trusts watching this and a little bit jealous of Milton Keynes' sort of technology first approach. How does a trust become a technology first trust, or was there a strategy to that, or have you just been lucky with some of the people who are involved?
So I think a bit of everything. I think I hope people aren't too jealous of us. I think that I'd hope they'd be inspired by us. I think there's technology out there to be tested, and you know, I would encourage any NHS trust out there that feels that they can't or shouldn't to just get involved in testing and evaluating some of this technology. You don't have to put it into a live environment straight away. There are ways that you can start very, very small. That's something that we do here all the time. We think, okay, how can we test this in a safe environment, in a smaller environment, and get some immediate benefits out of that? And then those immediate learnings and benefits, they're the sorts of things that you can go to your board of directors with and start sharing and generating the next sort of layer of discussions. Okay, what if we took this technology here instead? I think it's about working with the right people externally, definitely making sure that you're working with great suppliers. I think if you've got suppliers that are out there, especially when it comes to IoT technology and some of the smart building products that are being built, if there's anyone that says they have a package that's on the shelf ready to go and it works, I would be questioning them to come and maybe sort of, okay, demonstrate how this works, because I don't think this market has been developed far enough for anyone to say they've got all the answers. And for that reason, it's about working with lots of different suppliers and different people to understand what's out there, but also having lots and lots of discussions internally about what people's challenges are today, and then applying that technology wherever it may come from to those specific use cases. I just don't think we're at the point where we can go out and buy something off the shelf. And I think if NHS trusts are looking to buy things off the shelf, I think you're only going to be able to get what's in that box rather than make it scalable and use it more widely. So I think that's something that we're very, very good at here at MKUH. And again, and to have that honesty of, let's try things out. Does it work? Does it not work? We don't know, but we're not going to be able to learn if we can't at least try and make some of those mistakes and grow and learn from it.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think from my experience, universities and within the UK, the NHS are great test beds for this technology. And as a tech provider, you want to have success there, because if you get it right at one NHS trust or one university, there's a very big market for you to go at. So I think your approach is very correct in getting people involved who want to understand what pains you have and what you can achieve, and what's possible, because there's a lot of tech providers slightly scared of the NHS, and can we work with such a big organisation that's been run in a way historically, and are they open to change? And it's good to see that at least some trusts are willing to give it a try and work with the tech companies back the other way as well. You also sort of, on the mention of the universities, and I always feel that that's the best place to go and learn with this technology, because you've got students who are probably doing degrees in all this kind of either computer sciences or mechanical engineering and things like that. So again, I think it's a fantastic sort of test bed for this kind of tech. And in terms of, I don't know if you've looked at how this kind of technology has been adopted further afield. I mean, I've seen some stuff in Holland and some stuff in Italy and some stuff over in the US where it's all private, so there's quite a lot of money available. Have you looked at any of those, what's going on there, or are you really focused on your staff, your patients, your needs?
So we absolutely have looked further afield. We've talked to a few hospitals in the US, and it was amazing. You think about these hospitals as being private and having lots of money, and we were talking to a hospital. Don't quote me on the name; I would have forgotten it by now. But we were talking to a hospital that had a new building that was about to be opened, and I was really excited to see this because I thought it was going to have all the bells and whistles on it. It's a private hospital; it's going to have everything. And even they told me when I started talking about automation of features within rooms, heating, lighting, blinds, those sorts of things. Have you implemented that? And they said, well, we wanted to, but it was something that was just taken out of scope. It's something that's a nice to have. So there's still a feeling that this technology, because it's not widespread yet, it's something that is a nice to have potentially. And I think just because an organisation has a lot of finance at their disposal doesn't necessarily mean they make those choices yet, because it is the technology is so new. There's not that widespread understanding of the benefits. So we do look further afield. We do look within the NHS. I think if we were to just look within the NHS, we would only get, one view and one answer. It's absolutely essential that we look further afield. We have lots of connections in Norway and Sweden as well, with new hospital buildings that are going up. And the conversations, although the healthcare systems are very different and some of the challenges are different, a lot of the challenges are actually the same and a lot of the aspirations are the same. So it is lovely to keep an eye on what everyone else is doing.
Perfect. You've mentioned the cancer centre a few times. Is that really where you've focused your efforts? Is it a start small and then expand out type process with this kind of tech?
Yeah, so the cancer centre is a separate building that we have here at MKUH, and it was completed in 2018. So we used to have all of our cancer services spread out around our hospital, which made it quite uncomfortable for patients having to move from one place to another. It's quite a long distance between the two. So we brought all of our cancer services together into one building. It's a lovely building, brand new building built in 2018. And it mimics that design that probably is going to exist within the new buildings that are being built across the UK as part of the new hospital programme, in that they have single patient rooms, much bigger spaces as well. The technology from a building systems point of view, all been installed. It's reasonably new technology there as well, which makes, if we want to test the smart building products within a building, that felt like the most sensible place to go, because one, the technology was most up to date, and two, the design represents what we know is going to be used going forward into the future. So that is our test bed here at MKUH. But saying that, we're not just focusing on that area, there are other areas too, especially in the older parts of our hospital, where if we're thinking about sustainability and having strategies to make sure our buildings are as kind as they can be to the environment. It's much easier to be kind to the environment with a new building. It's a lot harder with an older building. So some of our piloting is now focusing on the older parts, where we install technology that can almost address the low-hanging fruits there. If we knew who was occupying a space and when maybe they'd gone home, could we do something with the building management so that we're saving energy where we can? And that's going to look completely different from the cancer centre to older parts of our building as well. We're not going to be demolishing our hospital anytime soon. This older building is going to be here for years to come. So it's important that we don't just lose sight of that. We make sure that we're designing digital smart building solutions for both the old and the new estate, so that we don't, put one experience into one building and it's completely different somewhere else.
Yep, 100%. And what's next for you guys? What's the next solution? What's the next problem you're going to try and solve, I guess?
Oh gosh, there's so many problems to solve, isn't there, always? So I think if we look too far in the future and try and solve the problems that we think may be happening too far in the future, we're probably only going to be able to get so far. Our strategy does look to address the issues that we have right now and kind of start building on those and building them out. I think the digital twin agenda, smart building agenda, is going to be, the most important thing for us here from a digital point of view over the next few years, alongside our, our EPR program that we have running to make sure that we're implementing clinical patient record systems that collect the right information. That's still going to be very important, but like I said earlier, the estate side here hasn't had a lot of attention for many years, and we need to sort of start investing in that area to make sure that we're bringing that side of our business up to speed with the digital developments that we've, the strides we've made forward from the clinical side over the last few years as well.
I guess from a digital twin point of view, it's so easy to, well, not so easy, but it's quite easy to add layers to it. You've done the utilisation, do you want to add the heating and then the carbon emissions, and just building up a little bit at a time and focusing on a different challenge and analysing a different piece of data within that model.
Yeah. And I mean, the things that the challenges we see today and we may predict are going to be there for the next few years, they could radically change. The pandemic is a great example of that. But, from both sides, internally within our organisation, things are changing all the time. Externally, things are changing all the time. The best thing we can do right now is learn to be agile and adaptable to that change. And the great thing about all the technology that's being wrapped around the digital twin discussion is it's so accessible and easy to start using. So, yeah, it's really exciting.
So is there a 2, 5, 10-year plan, or are you just, as you say, focusing on what you need to do now?
So from a digital twin point of view, do you think, or just more widely?
I think probably from a digital, well, both really. I think, I'm seeing shortening of people's long-term planning. I think, as you mentioned, the pandemic.
Yes, you're right.
The pandemic rocked everything.
So I'm not always. I know I'm always unpopular because I like to live in the here and now, and that would be wrong. You need to balance. You need to have a vision and a goal and a strategy to support that, and that can't be too naive that you can't plan things out over the next few years. I think a lot of what we do is going to be linked to our new hospital programme. That programme will put us on the right trajectory to building the right type of digital twin. I think if we were to start building a digital twin today without the understanding of what the new hospital is going to look like and how it's going to function, that's not going to be the right thing to do. We really do need to make sure that our new hospital programme is guiding the way, is ensuring that we're building right. We're going to be, we're going to have our existing estate here for many more years, but our new hospital really is our opportunity to design a smart hospital that addresses today's healthcare needs and can be agile and can link out to, virtual care within the community as well. Whereas, today we probably don't do as much as that as we would like. So I think to answer your question, the new hospital programme is going to be our put us on our trajectory over the next 2 to 5 years to building our smart hospital and complementing that alongside our existing building too. I have to keep saying that because we love our existing building too.
Fantastic. I think that's probably all we've got time for, but thank you very much for joining us. Massively insightful. I think everybody has a stake and an interest in what's going on and what's achievable within an NHS Trust, so it's always good to hear you guys are progressing so aggressively on this digital strategy. I'd like to thank everybody else for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, ensure you don't miss an episode of Smarter Building, and stay tuned for our next few podcasts where we'll be taking a look at Oculo and mentoring women in BIM.